Hello, welcome back to the channel, and yeah, I thought this would be a cool video to sort of wrap the year up here. I was going to go through my top 10 favorite photos of 2022, which has been a pretty daunting task, actually. And not because I'm like, oh, I've got so many great photos, I don't even know how to pick 10. It's actually been hard to come up with 10. So let me maybe explain a little bit how I was sort of picking these out. So I think a lot of people, when they go through their work from the year and they decided to pick out what's the best, how do you judge the best? Like, are you judging it strictly on like photographic qualities, like, photographic sort of metrics, like, well, it was the right light, it was the right exposure, and yes, I had the right angle, and I had the right composition, and my crop is good, and my editing is good, and this is like a portfolio only, to be in your top 10. And obviously, if I went by that, just as an amateur photographer, then I would have basically no photos. My top 22 photos would be nothing. So now it's not that I don't consider those factors I just mentioned, but I think for me, and it's funny going through all these old outings that I've made throughout the year. Obviously I was like, oh yeah, that was a great little adventure that we had on that one, or oh yeah, that day I thought there was gonna be nothing, and then all of a sudden at the end I got this great shot. And so I was actually more drawn to the photos that may not have been photographically the best, but have a good story or a good adventure, something to them. So anyways, I thought I would go through sort of my top 10 here. Just me personally, what I thought were my favorite shots of the year. And I'm going to bring up the photo viewer here and we'll go full screen. So this is number 10. This is the elk rut back in September. And what I really liked about this shot was we saw this bull, multiple days. He was always out in the same meadow. And of course, he was all the way in the back of the meadow, like really hard to get good shots. And so I think at this shot, I was at 600 millimeters. I had the 1.4 teleconverter on. I had my tripod, so I was getting some steady shots, but low light, and I was really trying to get that moment where he like bugles and gets his head up in the air. And again, I do the worst bugling impersonations like ever. It's terrible. But yeah, this shot was my favorite, I think, that I got of those 4 days. Yeah, like I said, this was probably the biggest bull that we saw on that side of the park. And yeah, he was in the same spot every day, so it was a good way to go see him. It's just he was so far back there, but I was really happy how this shot turned out, and especially from how far back and being in low light and all of that. So yeah, number 10 was from the elk rut in Rocky Mountain National Park on the Grand Lake side. So this maybe is some recency bias because I just took this shot a couple weeks ago. But I really do like this shot. I think it's great. Anyone who knows me knows that bighorn sheep are one of my favorite animals to photograph. And so when you get a chance to see them kind of up close like this, like you can sometimes in Waterton Canyon, yeah, it's always a treat. And I really like this shot because you can see the recent sort of battle scars during the rut. And this guy, I think, had come out. I mean, you can even see here maybe some scarring, but yeah, this was a great shot. And again, lucky that they were down sort of on the road by Waterton Canyon. And then we took some shots where I thought they were going to go down into the river, which would have been great. But then they ended up going back up the hill, and he kind of was on this little cliffside just looking over. And so I had the camera pointed up and was able to get this shot. And yeah, I love photographing bighorn sheep. One of my favorite things. And yeah, it's a good shot. This is number 9. Number 8. So obviously I did lots of owl photography this year, and this one was special to me because this was a great horned owl nest that I finally found in this little green belt in Lakewood. And I call this shot the Lucky Owl because I had been to this green belt 2 or 3 times, just walking around, right around sunset when they start to get active, and I could hear them. Like, I know they're around there, and I kept going over to where I thought I heard them hooting, and then I would never find anything, and I was just like, hey, I know they're here. And I got so desperate that literally I was walking around, and I was like, oh, there's a little cavity in a tree. Let me just point and shoot, and maybe they're in there. I just can't see them very well. And I was like, oh, nope, they're not in there. And then finally I came back to this tree, and this is like a cottonwood tree that it looks like had maybe the top half of it had like split and broken off. And they had made this little nest in the top of what remained. And I just took a shot and looked at the back of the camera and was like, oh my God, there it is. So I finally found him. So this was very rewarding because this was, 2 or 3 days worth of just walking all over this greenbelt trying to find these owls. And once I found him, actually the other thing that was a little tricky about this is this nest was actually pretty close to the parking lot. So that's another reason why I wasn't looking in that area. Is I was like, no, they'll be away from the parking lot, but actually it's pretty close to the parking lot. But anyway, so I came back to this nest all throughout the spring because they had owlets that all successfully fledged, and you'll see another shot coming up here soon. But yeah, very rewarding finally finding these owls. Number 7, I call this the heron. So this is also in Lakewood, not too far away from where the owl was that I just showed you. This was a day that was it was actually not a great day, to be honest. I had walked, this is at Belmar in Lakewood. A lot of birders are familiar with that. It's a very popular spot. I had gone there one day. This was in the summer. This was June or July. And there was a few snowy egrets, but they weren't in really great spots to get good shots. And I was just like, today's dead. And I was about to pack it up and go home. And I was like, oh, there's like this little wetland area sort of in the back of the park. And I was like, well, I should walk over there and just see if anything's going on back there. And so I went back there, and there was this lone great blue heron. And I was like, oh, well, at least there's a heron. And it's actually not too bad of a shot here. I was like, the water is just crystal, like smooth as glass. And all of the green grasses that line this wetlands were reflecting into the water perfect, so it looked really green. And then even the heron's reflection itself I thought was really cool. And with these logs here, it made like what I thought was kind of a cool, kind of moody photo. So I took some shots, and then it wasn't actually until I got home and pulled these up where I was like, oh, actually these are really good. I was like, wow. So that was a day that, again, was going horribly and just wasn't really getting anything good, and was just about to pack it up and just decided to go look one last spot, and actually ended up making one of my favorite photos of the year. So that was number 7, the great blue heron in Lakewood with the green water. It was, it's a cool shot. I really like this one. The first of a few photos from Alaska. And, I'm always like, well, I'm not really like a landscape photographer. And actually, part of that is not true. I mean, I think storm chasing is mostly like taking stormscapes is mostly doing landscape photography. So, actually, I can do a little bit of landscape photography. And this was a shot that I got when I was on the train going from Anchorage up to Denali. Again, I could post 50 photos from that trip that I thought were pretty good, because it was just so beautiful up there. And that was easily my favorite photography day of the year, was riding that train from Anchorage up to Denali. It is just something else. It's great. I really like this shot. Obviously, I thought the clouds were kind of dramatic, just hugging the top of some of these mountains. I thought it looked really cool. And then down here, I really liked the colors. It was kind of barren up there, and it just all of a sudden goes into green. And then this empty meadow here with just this little game trail going through it, I thought makes it a really interesting photo. Even without the game trail, I think it'd be really pretty, but I think that just gives it that little bit of interesting, I think if you look at this, you go, well, I wonder what made that. Was it a moose, or was it like a bear? here, or were there people out here maybe? Like, I don't know. It just gives you a little, it just gives that unique little touch, I think, to this photo. So, yeah, this was from the train from Anchorage to Denali. We are not done with that trip, I'll tell you that. So this is number 5. The moose calf in Rocky Mountain National Park. So sort of the story behind this shot was, this was July 1st. This was the day after my birthday. For my birthday this year, I went up to our cabin and spent like 3 or 4 days in Rocky Mountain National Park doing photography, and with not really great results. So I was a little bummed, and my dad and I had gone in early this morning that I took this, and we were looking for moose, and we found some elk, but again, nothing great, and no moose. And I was like, that East Troublesome fire has really disrupted the moose habitat over on that side of the park. And I mean, we go in there and I never see moose anymore since that fire. And it had just come out in the news that they confirmed that the fire was human caused. And I was just like, man, and stupid people are irresponsible and have burned down half of Rocky Mountain National Park. And now the moose are gone. And I was like, man, this sucks. Like, it just even thinking about it now, seeing like all the fire damage and knowing that it was some careless idiot caused it, pisses me off. And so I was telling my dad, I was like, yeah, it's never going to be the same over here, or it's going to take a long time for moose to come back over to the side of the park. And they're all over at the Estes side now, or they've left the park and gone other places. And I was just down. And so we're driving out, and my dad was sort of like, yeah, maybe so. And we're driving out, and there's a bunch of people pulled over, and I was like, oh, I wonder what they're seeing. And back in these burned trees was a mama moose and this little baby calf. And I was like, that is so fitting and exactly what I needed to see at this moment, because I was like, yeah, the moose are gone and they're not coming back. And here was a newborn here in the burned trees. I just thought it was a great shot of what I was feeling at the moment, and at the moment made me feel a lot better. And yeah, so this was a little moose calf from Rocky Mountain National Park here in all the burned trees, which I thought even the colors with the bright green grasses and then the black on the burned trees just made a cool shot. So yeah, that was that shot. All right, number 4, Denali. So again, I said it wouldn't be the last from that day. So yeah, we were on the train again going from Anchorage up to Denali, and we saw Denali off in the distance, and everyone was rushing to go get shots. And the conductor on the train was like, "Don't worry, we're gonna get up here towards Talkeetna, this little town. It's a stop anyway. We will stop the train. There's great vantage viewpoints to see Denali. We're going to stop for a while so everybody can get shots." And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So he stopped, right by this little river. We were on this bridge. And so everyone was out taking shots. And man, I was doing wide angle. And then I think this shot was with my 200 millimeter, like zoomed in. And this ended up being my favorite shot. I really wanted to try to capture like these details here. And just see like just how massive this is. And like you can even see some of the clouds that were wisping kind of like over the top. Yeah, this was by far my favorite shot on the train ride up. And again, you only really have a 30% chance to even see Denali. So the fact that we saw it, I was like, I have beaten the odds. And then I saw Denali again a few days later. So I actually ended up seeing it twice on my trip, which is just unbelievable. But this was my favorite shot of Denali, and this was taken right off the back of the train near Talkeetna, Alaska. And yeah, again, that whole day was so incredible on that train ride up. We're not done with the train ride photos yet, but this was my favorite shot of Denali, number 4. The fact that this is number 4, I think says a lot. So yeah. Number 3, back to our Lakewood Owls. Again, All of a sudden now this tree looks a lot different than it did in the other shot. There's actually leaves and things are green. So this was in May. So the owlets were born in that nest, and they, again, I think there were three, and all three fledged successfully. So that was good. And I kept coming back to this nest throughout the spring to take photos, see the owlets kind of grow up. And once the leaves started growing in, it was kind of weird, or it's not weird. It was just great because there was this little sort of portal that you could see through, and it was perfect to aim your camera right through and get cool shots like this. And so I remember going out this day. This was like earlier mid-May, and I was like, oh man, the weather's great again, and it's so nice to be outside in the warm. And then I went out this day because there was supposed to be snow the next day. So I was like, man, this is typical Colorado spring. It's 80 degrees one day and then snowing again the next day. So I made sure to get out this night to go at least get some good photos before the weather turned again. So this was one of my favorite shots of the owlets there in Lakewood. And yeah, it snowed like 4 or 5 inches the next day, which was terrible. My number 2 shot, again, this is the last shot from Alaska. So yeah, I really wanted to, the idea for me on this shot was I was going to go back to the observation car. I saw this mountain off in the distance, and I saw that we were coming up to it. So I was like, oh, I want to get some shots of this mountain. And then the train kind of went around this little corner, and I was like, oh, it'd be great to maybe get the train like in the foreground and then of the mountain. And then, so I was out there hanging off the back, trying to get the framing that I wanted. And all of a sudden I just hear like over the top of us, and I was like, what? And this plane just came, and then the plane was flying really low and then zoomed up. And so I was like, whoa, this is great. So I waited until the plane was sort of, it could be silhouetted behind or in front of the clouds. And so yeah, then I took a couple shots, and I thought it turned out really great. And so again, yeah, the plane part was just total coincidence. I really just wanted the train and just this mountain in the background, but yeah, getting the plane on top of it was just dumb luck. And yeah, I really like this shot. I love the way this turned out. And again, that train ride up was awesome to Denali. There was lots of other photographers on the train ride too, so it was cool. It's always cool meeting new photographers. Hey, we were once strangers, and now we're out here drinking beers and taking shots and just having a blast. And yeah, like I said earlier, definitely my favorite photography day of the year by a landslide. It was great. And again, if you're ever thinking about going to Denali, I cannot recommend enough taking this train. You will not regret it. You should do it. So, all right, now drum roll. Number 1 photo of the year for me. The northern pygmy owls that were up near Lyons, Colorado. Yeah, this is my favorite shot, and I really like this shot for a couple of reasons. First off, sort of the story behind it was these owls actually caused a lot of drama in the birding world here in Colorado. It was kind of a secret location, and then the secret got out, and people were posting lots of photos of the northern pygmy owls. So all of a sudden, everybody wanted to go photograph these, and they were in these trees that were right next to like private property. And so the people that own the property were getting pissed because all these nerdy photographers kept showing up all day long, and there was things to say that the photographers were leaving trash behind, which is very messed up if that was true. And they were going to call the cops, and the cops were going to sit there, and if you tried to show up and take photos, then the cops were going to tell you to leave, and it was just a bunch of drama. And at the same time, though, I wanted to take photos of the northern pygmy owls. So I guess after a couple of days, kind of everything kind of cooled down a little bit. Like, I don't know if it was just people making things up or what, but I was like, you know what? If I go up there, maybe on like a weekday, And, it's not like a weekend where there's tons of people and I can get up there maybe one afternoon, just get in, take a couple of shots, and then just get out of there and be like, all right, cool, I saw him. That was kind of what I was thinking. So I left work early one day, and obviously you can see the light in the background. It was a beautiful day. This was in March, and I went to the spot, and there were a few other photographers there, but not too many, maybe like 3 or 4. And so I parked, and this owl, there was a pair up there. There was a mated pair. This owl, I'm not sure if this is the male or the female. I'm not sure. Was in this tree literally right next to the road. So I was able to just sit there and just get a few good shots. I loved that the background was nice and bright, and I loved the little perch it was on, and I love its eyes just looking at me, and it's just this teeny little cotton ball of an owl. And I was there maybe 25, 30 minutes maybe at most, and then I was happy with the shots that I got, so I just got out of there. Again, I don't want to be a part of the problem, but I still want to get the shots too, So, anyways, that was my favorite shot of the year, was this northern pygmy owl from March up near Lyons, Colorado. And yeah, that's it. So those are my top 10. I did also want to shout out sort of maybe they didn't make my top 10 list, but there were 3 other sort of outings that were very memorable to me this year that I made videos about, that I do feel like deserve like a little shout out. So first was the barn owl. I did a video about rescuing low light photos from barn owls that I went and shot one night. And the photos, came out okay. They were fine, but they definitely wouldn't be like a top 10 photo because we're shooting almost in pitch dark. So, but that outing was one of the most fun outings that I did this year. And it was mostly because I wasn't going to go. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I had to be on for work early the next day. And I was like, I don't want to drive all the way up to Weld County. I was like, but it would be really cool to see these barn owls. And I was like, should I do it or not? And I had gone to Mount Evans the day before, so I was like, well, I've already got out and done some cool stuff this weekend. Like, why push it, But I was like, well, I could just drive up there, though. And so I got in the car and drove up there, and I was like, oh, my God, I hope I find them. And so I ended up finding them, obviously, and there were 3 other photographers that were there that night, too. And I was hoping that the barn owls would get active sort of during dusk. Like, there's going to be some light left. And this other guy who was there with us was like, no, they really don't come out until it's like almost dark. He's like, so yeah, crank your ISOs up. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we sat there in this field in the middle of nowhere near Erie, Colorado. And we're just getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. And we're just telling funny stories to each other, just getting to know each other. And eventually the barn owls came out and got some really good stuff. And it was just one of those nights where as I was driving home late night, I was like, man, I'm so glad I came out here tonight. I was this close to just, I'm not going. And I'm so glad that I did. It always works out like that, where, if you're thinking about going, just go, because that's when the amazing stuff happens. So that night with the barn owls, definitely a shout out. Is one of my favorite outings of 2022. The other video I made about the 3 rare bird challenge that I did, that video over the summer was so much fun to make, where I went and saw the white ibis. I tried to see a little blue heron, and then the Mississippi kites in Denver. That video was so much fun to make and just was a blast. So I would definitely shout out that. And yeah, I think also recently, the couple weeks ago, when I went out with my friend and her daughter and got to do get to test out my teaching a little bit with her and her wildlife photography, was also another amazing day where we got to go out and see a bunch of stuff that we wanted to see. We saw all 3 things. Again, I made a video about it just a couple weeks ago. So those are my sort of favorite outings from the week or from the year. And yeah, I guess lastly, just to kind of give a little bit of update on what my plans are for next year. Um, Obviously, I think I've mentioned in a few videos that I really want to go photograph whales. So that is a big goal for next year, is to go somewhere to photograph whales. I was thinking about maybe even in like February or March going down to Baja in Mexico, because that's where the gray whales go. And they actually have their calves there down near Baja. There's a lot of places to go down there where you can go see gray whales. Um, I am also in the middle of getting my passport renewed, which is a process that goes very slowly. So I don't know if I would even get my passport back in enough time to do that. So that could be something that maybe is happening. Nothing concrete there yet. If I don't do that, then I will go to California and see them. That I'm gonna do it. I need to photograph whales this year. That is my thing. Also, starting in February and probably through the spring, I did the Great Owl Search of 2022. I will be doing the Great Owl Search of 2023 again this year. My goal is to find way more nesting sites and just keep checking in on them throughout the months when they have the little owlets, and really try to document it better, like on video, and try to make the series, like the videos, a little bit more compelling than I did last year. Last year, the idea came together just sort of as I was going, and I didn't really like plan out any of it. So I'd like to do a little bit better job on that this year. So definitely big owl stuff coming up in late winter into the spring. So that's going to be happening. Also, it looks like the big trip this year. So I've done Glacier, I've done Denali, I did Yellowstone and Grand Teton the year before. I think this year is going to be Banff and Jasper up in Canada. So again, another reason why I'm getting my passport renewed right now. So that is going to be happening. It looks like with friends coming up this fall, or the fall of 2023. So that's happening. And then storm chase stuff. We'll see. The La Nina pattern does not favor good storm chasing, sort of in Colorado and the high plains. So I'm hoping La Nina subsides. It's been around now for at least a couple of years, so that's really hurting storm chasing potential. It's sort of in my area. Of course, if anything comes up and it aligns with my work schedule and me being able to get out to do it, then I'm going to try. I know that's been it's been neglected for me the past couple of years, but there just hasn't really been a lot of good stuff to go storm chase. So I'm hoping that improves in 2023, but we'll see. But then other than that, and I'm hoping to try to get up to Yellowstone again at some point, either maybe the summer or maybe in the late spring, like maybe like May, June-ish, to get up there and try to see wolves again. Because I have not, the last couple of places I've gone where I could see wolves, I still have not seen any. So I really would like to get wolves checked off next year, because of course, like if you saw my previous video, we have wolves being reintroduced to Colorado next year. I think it's going to happen late year. We're still waiting on Colorado Parks and Wildlife to release their final plan, which should come out tomorrow. So if it does, I will make another video again here about the finalized plan for wolf reintroduction in Colorado. So who knows, maybe at the end of next year, maybe there'll be a chance to go photograph wolves, maybe here in Colorado. I doubt it, but you never know. We'll see how that plays out. So anyways, lots of plans for 2023. So I just want to say thank you again to anybody who's watched any of my videos this year. I know my upload schedule can get a little skittish. My plan is always to try to get something up at least every 2 weeks, if not something every week. So that's, hopefully it can stick with that again next year. Of course, I do this solely as a side hobby. I don't make a dime off photography or YouTube or anything like that. It's only just for fun for me. Like even making these YouTube videos is just for fun. I hope that some people, find them and enjoy them. And that's what it is. So hope everyone has a great holiday coming up. And again, I'll make another video about the wolf plan if that comes out here. And if not, then probably new videos coming in 2023. So until then, thanks for watching, and have a great new year.